Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to create floating input fields using Figma. Once I click this back, you notice they go back to the original state, and we're also going to cover constraints which will be used in this project, and you can also use that in other project. If you're new to my channel, kindly hit the subscribe button. Let's get into it. To get started, I will be using a rectangle. To do that, I'll pick on the rectangle here and then drag this. So we can just change the height of this to 58. And then I'm going to add a stroke to this. I will set the stroke to 2 pixels. And then we can now start working on the rectangle. So now while selecting the rectangle, press the enter key on your keyboard. On MacBook, press the return. And then you're going to enter into the object edition mode here. So now I'm going to click on this dot here and then press the delete on your keyboard. So we now have an opening. The next thing is you can click on the button at the top here, done, and then we can play with the border radius. We can go as far as saying adding 8 or 4. After that, we need to duplicate this item here. To do that, press Ctrl D to duplicate. So after that, we can rotate this item by pressing Shift H to do that. If you're wondering, you can as well just change this angle here to 180 and then you're going to get the same result. So now we need to add our labels. To do that, I'll click on the text here and then add label. So this label here, I'm going to set the size to 14. I think I have that here already, and it's going to be semi-bold, and the font family I'm using is plus Jakarta Sand. Then here I'm going to change the color of the text to black. We can add this in an auto layout by pressing Shift A, and then I'm going to remove the spacing at the top and bottom. Then on the left and right, I'm going to leave that to 6. After having this, I can rename this to inner label. Then we can duplicate this by pressing Ctrl D here, and then I'll drag this to the top here. Now we need to double click on this item and then change the font size of this text to 12. So here the name is going to be top label. So this is going to be top label. So after that, we need to make this bold. I'm going to select the text again and then make sure I'm changing this from semi-bold to bold. Now we have our text. The next thing we want to do here is to fill in these spaces. So I'm going to just click on this item, hold shift to push this. So now to close the space in here, I will use the pen tool. Now I can click from here to this point here, and then I can click on done here. So the stroke of this, it's automatically set to 2. If yours is 1, you can change that to 2. So now I will make sure that this item here is aligned to this. You see, they touch each other here. And then also for the text here, let's align this properly. We want this section here, we want it to start like this here, and then this item should also touch this end here. So I will hold shift and then drag this till it touches this. So if I select this item, you see these two items are actually touching. Now I can do the same for this other spacing here. To do that, I'm going to select this item, duplicate this, and then drag this here. After doing that, I'm going to drag this item here and make sure that these two items are actually touching each other. So once we've done this now, we need to work on this other section here. To do that, I will select this top label and then this icon here, and then press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. So now after doing that, you might have a shift here, so press the down button here to align these two items. If it's not aligned, you can just do that manually. So if it's still not aligned, it means I need to change some settings on the text here. So I'll double click on this text here, and instead of auto here, I will change this to 12 or 14. So now let me try to realign these items together. So I can drag this here. You see it's perfectly aligned. So you can as well try that with other numbers. If 12 don't work, you can try 14, which I believe 12 should work. After this, I need to also cover this spacing here because I can still see an empty space. So I'll cover this here. So we need to do some settings for this particular section here. And I will show you why we need to change the height of this. I will set that to fix. And then for the content, this line here, instead of you select the line, instead of fix, we are going to say fill container. So right now, if I select this text here, that's this label top, and I hide this, you see it's going to fill in that container. So let's say I select this whole frame again, that's this one here, and the height is set to hug, and you decide to hide this section here, this is what will happen. So here we need to set the original height here back to fixed height so that whenever this is hidden, we don't get a shift on our design. So now we're done with this section. The next thing here is to select this label here, that's the inner label. So I'll select the inner label and make sure that this is aligned to this label here. So I have this aligned to this label here. So after aligning this, we can then highlight over these items here and then right click and then wrap them in a frame. So after wrapping this in the frame, we can now click this and try to center this here. So for this item here, or for our frame, let me rename that to our input field. After renaming the frame to the input field, please do not click on this clip to content here. So we're going to leave this. If you clip to content, you might have some irregularities on your design. So this should be open. Now we need to work on the responsiveness of this our design, because if I should increase this frame here, you see nothing happens. So now we're going to be setting the constraints for this frame. To do that, I will start with this section here. So I can as well rename this here to right for easy identification. Then here I will rename this to left. So I can start with this left hand side. While selecting this, after wrapping them in a frame, we can get the constraints here. So once we get this, for the left and right, we're going to set this to left. Then for this, we're going to set this to top and bottom. What that means is we can increase this item to the left hand side. I will undo it, and we can also increase this item from the top to the bottom. That's what we want. So we're going to do the same thing for this other section here. This time we're going to set this to right, and then this is going to be top and bottom. We should be able to increase this top here, and then also we should be able to increase it this way. So I'll undo that. Then for this section here, what we want to do here is when you select this here, we want this to go left and right. So for this top and bottom here, we can set that here to top. That's for this. We want this to stick to the top. Then let's select this input field here and see what happens. If I drag this, you notice this behaves properly. And then if I try to go up here, let's drag this up, you see everything behaves properly except for this. So now I'm going to select the label here. That's the down line. So let's also rename this to down line here. So we also need to set this here. So we're going to set this to left and the right. And then we're also going to set that as well to bottom here. So now let's select this item here and then play around with this. You see everything moves properly. So now I just need to work on the label. So this design is responsive. So to work on the label, I can now select this item here. So we can set that as well to left and right. And then for this, it's going to be at the center. So now if you select this and we try to drag this here, and I think the only thing here I think we need to fix is the label. So I'm going to select the label here and make sure that this is starting from the left. So I will select this again and then try to play with this here, and this is highly responsive. And then we just need to set this here to the original point here. So I will make sure that this is starting somewhere here. I want this aligned with this, so I have to force this to align with this. So we can use a ruler here. I'll just drag the ruler here and then make sure it's aligned with this here. So now we can select our input field here, try to drag this. You see this is responsive to any level, so we have our responsive input. So the next thing we want to do here is to work on the animation. To do that, we can now convert this item here into a component. Once you've done that, the next thing we need to add some component properties. So I'm going to select this text here. Then you can hold Command and Shift or Control and Shift to select this other text here. So what you're going to do here is you're going to come down here and create a property. So now here, this is going to be our label. So by default here, we can have this set to label. Okay, let's set that to placeholder like this. So I'll now click on the create property to create this property. So here I think we need to fix this here so that I need to align this properly to this item. So I can push this here, and I will check the constraint here. So let's work on the auto layout for this. We want this from the left hand side. Please, I want the width of this to be hug. That is where the problem is coming from. So we can push this back in here. So now let's create a variant. To create a variant, you need to select the component and click on the plus sign here. The next thing we need to do here, for this item, I will select this here and then try to hide this item. So to do that, I can just click on this sign here, that's the top label, and try to hide the top label. So we're left with the placeholder here. After having this now, for this item, I will just click on this and then drag this downward here so that I can push this other item here. This time select this and then press Ctrl D to duplicate. So we have the third item here. So but I want this to be somewhere here. So I can now select this here. So bring this downward here. So we want when the user hover over this, we just need to get an effect here. To do that, I'm going to change the feel of this. To do that, I can select any gray color. I think I'll select any of the gray color here. Then once the user click on hover over this, we can now have this effect. So if the user click on this, we also want to get this effect here. So for this section, we have to select this text here and then change this to 12. After changing this to 12, I will hold shift and then try to push this item. Let me double click, hold this item, try to push this here so that it's going to fit in perfectly to this here. So now we have our inner label here, and then we also have our top label here as well. So for the top label, the pass through, I will set that to 0. So we now have this label here, that's the top label. So for the top label, we want to make sure that double click in and then make sure that the font size here is now set to, I think I'm selecting the top label. So that should be the inner label. So the inner label, please do that. And then let's select this and change this from semi-bold to bold. So now I can then try to fit that in here. So select this item and then try to push that up a little. So we have this sitting on the same position with the top label. So after having this now here, then all we need to do is an indication. We need to add an indication to tell the user they can now type in. So I'm going to quickly use a pen tool here, or let's just use a rectangle here. Then I'm going to drag this, set the width to maybe 2 or 1. So I'm going to change the height of this. So let me just change the height here. So I'm going to change that to 35 or 36 here. So after changing this here, we can now convert this to let's use a gray color here, and then we can convert this to a component. After converting this to a component, you can now add a variant to this. So select this variant here. We're going to change the name to invisible. So this other variant here, we are going to change that to visible here. So after having this, let's try to prototype this. So this, I can just click on prototype here, and then let's try to point to this. Now might just find good. I can point to this item here. So now this is going to be after a delay. So we want to change that after a delay, and then this should be instant. Then I'll click on this other item here, drag this. I want to point to this after a delay here as well. I'll return the favor. Then this is also going to be instance. So we just need to change this to, let's say, 600. So that means I'll have to do the same for the first one here. So I have to look for a way to select the first one and then change that to 600. So for this item here, we want to go back to design and make sure that it's actually invisible. So the pass-through, I'll set that to 0. So now we have a component here, which I'll just say this is indicator. That's the name here. So I can come in here and then click on assets and then wait to get the indicator here. So I can drag the indicator and then drop it here. So by default, it is not visible. So I'll just put that somewhere here. So let's do this. I can select this, select matching layers, and then try to reduce the height of this item because of the current state of my input field. So now once we have this, I can select this now here. This is going to be our default state. This is going to be our hovered state here, hovered. And then this guy right here is going to be our active state here. So we just need to play with the colors here. So now I can select this item, that's the black colors. I can change that to this purple, not good. Okay, I could just change that to this color. I'll drag this somewhere here. So once we have this here, we need to work on the prototype. So I can select this, go back to the prototype mode. So here, once the user hover over this, we want to get so here, this is going to be while hovering, we should get this state here, and then this, we want that to be instant. So from this level here to this other one, that's where we need the smart animate. So when the user click on this here, this is going to be while clicking. So here on click, good. So now we want this to be smart animate, and we want this to be ease in and out. So down to the active state. So once the user click on this state again back, we can just take them back to this state here. So now we have 3 states. So what we're going to do is to create a frame. I'll just create this frame here and then drag this input field and then drop this here. So this is, I'm going to increase the weight of this. So now I can hold shift and then press the space bar on my computer so that we can test this. So now let's select this item here, and then we have this effect, and then we can add more items here. That's the beauty of this. I can duplicate this and then drag this downward here, and coming back to design here, I will just tell the user to enter your name. So I have that here, and then when I click on this item here, you see we have enter your name, and then the user can actually type in their name. And the longer the text, regardless, it's going to fit into the top design there. So if I duplicate this and then drag this here and say, okay, I just want to enter letter B like this. And then when the user, okay, let me just drag this up here so that we can see that when the user click on this here, we just have B here. So there are some things that you can adjust, like the padding inside this. We can just push this a little back and then, you know, make the design looks better than this. So once the user click back on this, we get our designs back. The user click in, this moves up. We do the same thing here, we get the same result. Just a fix before we round up the tutorial. if I come in here, I just created this placeholder and then I try to select the active state here. You notice that this is not going to the top here. So the solution for this is to come back to the active state here. I'm going to select this and then look for the inner label here. Once we select the inner label, we're going to change the constraint here to top. So once you do that, this should automatically fix that problem. So if we go back here and then create a default state with this size here, and then I change that to active, we should have that problem fixed. So if you're new to my channel and you like tutorials like this, please kindly hit the subscribe button to show your support for this channel. So I'll see you on the next tutorial. Thank you for watching.